Good morning, you're watching World News and I'm your host, Klaudia Czerwińska. The European Commission is gathering in the Polish port city of Gdańsk on Friday for high-level discussions on security with Polish ministers. For the latest, we go live to Sasha Farbach, who is on site. Good morning, Sasha. So this is a traditional visit by Commission, just like in any rotating presidency term. But what is expected at this gathering today? Is it in any way different, or is it just a courtesy call?
Good morning. I think it is different in the sense that also I think very much significance matters here. Gdańsk here for Poland historically, and also for Donald Tusk, Prime Minister Donald Tusk, who's also a tenant. He's someone who's grown up here, and also those political roots are here. But let's talk about what this means. In terms of the Commission, I mean, this comes on the heels of that informal of EU leaders just some days ago. Now, the idea is that Donald Tusk is expecting more from this Commission. Now, rotating presidency are limited to what they can actually do, but they do set the order in the agenda. Now, it's no coincidence that all of those commissioners are here today. Now, very much we'll probably be hearing more about defense. There are several meetings planned between different ministers from Poland who are all here as well. So there'll be various delegation meetings here throughout the day. Now, we'll start with a welcome here with Ursula von der Leyen and Donald Tusk just about at 11 o'clock. Now, they'll also tour this incredible museum here, Solidarity. And again, that is also going to send a political signal. But remember also the location of this. We have Kaliningrad not so far away. We're here on the eastern flank. We're here at the Baltic. So needless to say, security will be imbued in those talks here today. Now, the idea is, remember, we had the Draghi reports. We had hundreds of pages of how to make the union more competitive, ready for geopolitical challenges. Now, we need some tangible results. Now, the executive, those commissioners, they're the ones that draft legislation, propose things for the European Union. Now, they're going to be having some tough meetings, I think, with Donald Tusk and all the various commissioners here. So we'll have to see what comes out of it. Will it be enough to get things going more competitive? We'll have to wait and see. But that's the latest from Gdańsk. Claudia, back to you.
Thank you so much, Sasha Farbach, reporting live from Gdańsk. Please keep us updated. Crews of Shadow Fleet vessels could be added on the sanctions list, according to a proposal submitted by Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski to Kaja Kallas, the EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs. If implemented, the proposal would apply EU sanctions to crew members of ships operated by Russia under flags of convenience. Some of these vessels are either responsible for suspected or damaging underwater infrastructure in the Baltic Sea. In the most recent EU sanctions package, 45 additional third country ships carrying oil for Moscow were added to the list of sanctioned vessels. The European Union agreed with Czech officials on restricting freedom of movement for Russian diplomats. Poland has already introduced similar measures banning Russian staff from leaving their assigned country.
There are around 2,000 Russian diplomats in the European Union, 20% of whom are intelligence agents, according to Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski. This means that some 400 Russian agents can travel throughout the EU freely and aid in planning hybrid attacks on member states. While the Czech initiative is not yet on the official sanctions list, Polish officials said they will push for the idea to be added to the listing. At the same time, Radosław Sikorski said the measure does not require a unanimous vote in the EU, as such restrictions are the responsibility of each individual member state.
The General Staff of Ukraine said that since the Ukrainian army entered Russia's Kursk region, the Russian army has lost some 40,000 troops, including at least 16,000 dead soldiers. Officials in Kyiv also noted it is the first time in 11 years of conflict that military operations were conducted on Russian soil.
As stated by Ukrainian authorities, the goal of the Kursk offensive was preventing Russian attacks in the Kharkiv and Sumy regions of Ukraine. The operation, according to officials in Kyiv, met the expectations of Ukraine's leadership. According to high-ranking members of the Ukrainian armed forces, it pressured Moscow to move soldiers and supplies to the region, alleviating pressure from other front lines. Additionally, due to the success of the Ukrainian military, Russia was forced to seek support from North Korea. Overall, North Korean losses have amounted to 4,000 soldiers. Out of the 3 brigades which arrived in Russia from Pyongyang, 1 has been destroyed, while the other 2 lost combat readiness and were removed from the front line.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said in a televised interview that if given the opportunity, Vladimir Putin will once again attack Ukraine. According to Zelensky, a frozen conflict in Ukraine will lead to more Russian troops on Ukrainian soil. Zelensky added that Trump must not only finish the war, but also make sure that Putin has no chance to strike again.
A frozen conflict will lead to Putin coming back again with his aggression. Who will then be receiving prizes? Who will then make history as a winner? No one. And that will be a loss to absolutely everyone. And it's very important for us, as well as for Trump. He needs to not just finish the war, he needs to make sure that Putin has no chance of coming back with a war against us. I believe this is the most important part, and everyone must admit that. Then it will be a victory.
The first Mirage 2000 fighter jets have arrived in Ukraine. The aircrafts donated by Paris will support Kyiv's Air Force, which already operates other Western fighters such as F-16s to protect the country against Russian assaults. As relations between Paris and Moscow deteriorate, the Kremlin has decided to withdraw the press accreditation for French newspaper Le Monde's correspondent in Moscow.
Mirage jets can be used for intercepting missiles, countering drones, and for ground strikes. Paris has now donated the first of these jets to Kyiv.
June 6, 2024, Emmanuel Macron announced the delivery of French Mirage 2000s to Ukraine. The first of them arrived in Ukraine today. With Ukrainian pilots trained for several months in France on board, they will now help defend the skies over Ukraine.
The Mirage is the oldest aircraft in service with the French Air Force, but it's far from obsolete. France could donate 6 such jets to Ukraine, according to French media reports, but this has not been confirmed either by Paris or Kyiv.
I won't tell you the number, I have no right to do so, but the dates are those we agreed on with President Macron. Yes, Mirage jets arrived, but to be honest, we expected additional F-16 jets and Mirage jets to arrive.
The French fighter can carry long-range missiles and guided bombs. France and the UK have supplied Kyiv with Scalp and Storm Shadow missiles, which have a range of 250 kilometers.
The French delivery of the Mirage 2000s are not going to be the game changer that so many people wanted to apply to other weapon systems. What they're going to do, though, is make very certain that the Ukrainian Defense Forces are going to be in a position to inflict offensive damage onto the Russian enemy, and that's something that will allow us to get some breathing room and be able to force the Russians into a just peace.
With France providing weapons to Kyiv since the beginning of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, relations between Paris and Moscow have not been too warm. For the first time since the 1950s, French daily Le Monde will not have a correspondent in Moscow. The Kremlin has cancelled accreditation for Benjamin Quesnel, who has worked as a journalist in Moscow for the past 20 years. Now he is prohibited from exercising his profession.
This revocation of our right to practice our profession is unprecedented. Even in the most tense moments of the Cold War, Le Monde had continued its work in Moscow and elsewhere.
The spokesperson of the Russian Foreign Ministry has admitted that Moscow refused to extend the journalist accreditation in retaliation to France declining to grant visas to journalists from the Komsomolskaya Pravda tabloid. The French Foreign Ministry said the names put forward by Moscow were not those of journalists, but of agents of Russian intelligence. Since 2022, Russia has tightened its grip over the media. It has forced the closure of the last independent outlets and labeled many journalists and activists as foreign agents. Those who remained faced a tough job of avoiding long prison sentences for publishing what the Kremlin calls fake news about the Russian military.
The fake news law can also be used against foreign journalists. What proves that this kind of work is very risky, we can see from the story of Evan Gershkovich.
The arrest of Wall Street Journal correspondent Ivan Gershkovich in 2023 prompted many more journalists to leave. Gershkovich, accused by the Kremlin of spying and jailed for nearly a year and a half, was released in a prisoner swap last summer.
The U.S. will not present a plan to end the war in Ukraine during the Munich Security Conference next week, according to Keith Kellogg, the U.S. Special Envoy for Ukraine and Russia.
Kellogg's statement is a rejection of a report that circulated earlier this week, suggesting he was about to reveal such a plan during the conference in Munich. The US Special Envoy for Ukraine and Russia said it is not his but Donald Trump's prerogative to announce a peace plan. Earlier on Thursday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky also said he is certain that no US peace plan will be announced, as preparing it should first include coordination with Kiev.
Speaking with CNN, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov announced that Russian President Vladimir Putin and US President Donald Trump are yet to discuss a possible meeting. According to Peskov, there has not been an initial contact between the two leaders about whether such a meeting was needed or when and how it might take place. Earlier on Thursday, however, Leonid Slutsky, a deputy of the Russian State Duma, said that a meeting between the two leaders could take place in February or March and that preparations for a US-Russia summit are at an advanced stage. Hungary will sign a significant economic deal with the United States government to, quote, repair the damage done by the previous American administration. The announcement was made by Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán on Friday.
In an interview with Hungarian state radio, Orbán criticized the Biden administration for not renewing certain agreements which could boost U.S. investments, introducing certain sanctions, and difficulties in travel. He also expressed hope that the new deal signed with the Trump administration will rectify all those mistakes. However, he failed to provide any more details.
Donald Trump has nominated political commentator and entrepreneur Thomas Rose as the next U.S. ambassador to Poland. The news was announced by the American president via his social media platform Truth Social. Thomas Rose is no stranger to Europe and Poland in particular. Back in December of 2024, he met with Polish President Andrzej Duda, who he called America's greatest friend in the European Union.
I'm pleased to announce that Thomas Rose will serve as the next United States ambassador to Poland. Thomas is a highly respected businessman and commentator who had a successful radio show on Sirius XM for almost a decade and served as the publisher and CEO of the Jerusalem Post. He will make sure our interests are represented in Poland and always put America first. Congratulations, Thomas. I'm deeply honoured and profoundly humbled to be asked by our history-making President of the United States to serve as ambassador to Poland. If confirmed, I will spend each and every day doing my very best to promote, defend and advance the interests of the United States of America and our fabulous President, Donald Trump.
The United States wants NATO to be more lethal and more operational, said James Apathurai, a NATO Deputy Assistant Secretary General, during a recent appearance on TVP World's On the Record. Apathurai went to express his hope that statements coming from the U.S. government will help inspire the alliance to be much more effective.
What I hear coming from Washington is two messages. One is that the allies need to spend more, and substantially more. And I think Poland is in a very strong position because Poland understood that a long time ago and has invested. But second, clear messages that what they want from NATO is to be more lethal, more operationally effective. So these are all messages about strengthening the alliance, making it more robust, more able to act. So actually, I find that quite encouraging. There will be some political discussions and economic discussions between the United States and its allies that I think we can just price in. But when it comes to NATO, as we launch this second term, actually, I find the messaging much more solid in terms of making the alliance more solid.
To watch the full episode of TVP World's On the Record, head to our YouTube channel. Nearly 60% of people leaving North Korea last year entered Russia, declaring education as the cause of visit. This marks a 12-fold yearly increase in the number of North Korean migrants in Russia. According to South Korea, however, their final goal might be quite different.
2024 saw over 13,000 North Koreans enter Russia, compared to the 1.1 thousand from 2023. According to the Russian Federal State Statistics Service, last year, just over 3,000 North Koreans entered Russia for business purposes, while 7.8 thousand listed education on the immigration form. As stated by South Korean newspaper Korea Yongang, North Korea could be sending laborers to Russia as part of compensation for the deliveries of arms and ammunition. This stands in stark contrast to the 2017 UN Security Council resolution, which obligated member states to deport North Korean employees. The measure was meant to lower North Korean income, at the same time disrupting its nuclear program.
And now, just before we go, it's time for us to go to Latvia, specifically to Adazi, a town on the outskirts of Riga, Latvian capital, where Latvian and Swedish government and military officials attend a ceremony marking Swedish troops officially joining NATO's multinational battle group stationed in Latvia. Later on today, we're also to expect a press conference between Latvian Prime Minister Evika Silina and Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson at 2 p.m., which we will be giving you more details on as the event takes place. But as you can see on our live feed this very moment, we have the Swedish military officials and the Latvian officials attending a ceremony marking Swedish troops, which you can see on the screens, officially joining NATO's multinational battle group stationed in the country. And so this would be all for now. Thank you so much for joining, but please do stay tuned here on TVP World. We're back in just a moment with more features and interviews.